What's up, y'all? This is Hussein Nasser from iGeometry, and I believe we are recording. All right, welcome to the first episode of Level 1 JavaScript by example. This is JavaScript by example. I'm trying to mimic Audible, but it doesn't work, so sorry. All right, so you've come here, right? You want to learn JavaScript, or you want to let's correct that. You want to build a cool application that will change people's life, or that will make your life easier. You want to build a mobile application. You can do all that with JavaScript, right? What do you need? You don't need anything. You don't need to know any skills. All you need is literally this computer. I have a Mac. If you have Windows, that will work too. If you have a Mac, that will work definitely, right? So all you have to need is just a laptop, and you can get started. You can build cool applications. So in this series, in level 1, we're gonna build we're gonna build a calculator, right? This might seem trivial, but once you build it, you're gonna say that, hey, I built this, right? And you can add your own touches to this application, right? So let's get started. How about that? Let's get actually started. Just go ahead and start it. Before you jump into code and all these, before we jump into coding and writing different codes, let's just get to what do you need to get started, right? So you just need a computer. That's where we established that, right? You get that. So you need a certain things of applications that you need to download to get started, to run that code that you're gonna author. And by the end of this series, you will be able to author application, you author your calculator, and even run it on your own machine, and you can consume that application from your mobile phone. And that will be really cool things to show after a few episodes. But what do you need to get started? What do you actually need? First of all, you need a computer. Check. The second thing is you need to download a text editor. That is where we're gonna write code, and I recommend Sublime Text. Sublime Text. Really simple, free tool. Go ahead and download it. It's just a text editor. If you have your own text editor, go ahead and use it. It just works. Anything really literally works, right? Any text editor where you can type anything in, right? We need something to type things in. The second thing we need to do, which is a more important thing, is actually a web server. Things that your code will execute on, right? So you need to host a web application. You need to host a web server for your application to be executed on top of that. So how do you get that? It's very simple. I'm gonna link a video that I did earlier in preparation for this video to prepare for this series, right? And once you set this up, you'll be good to go, right? So I have on this machine, so you can go ahead and pause this video and go to the second video where you set up your web server. Once you come back, you'll be exactly where I am, and that's exactly what you need to do, right? All good? That's the two things we need. Let's get started. Let's first of all, let us fire off our web server, right? To fire our web server here, so maybe some of you is not familiar with this application called terminal. So you can just type here literally terminal, and then this will pop up, right? And then once you install your web application or the web server, you will go to the directory of the installation. In this case, in my case, I actually installed it here, right? Node modules, HTTP server, and then bin, and that is my web server. And that's how, by the way, that's how you navigate directly. CD is change directory. So once you are here, right, you have, this is your web server. I am going to execute my web server and run it. So that's how you execute the web server. You type node, that's my Node.js web server. By the way, if you have Windows, you can use your IIS web server or any other web server, but you can just stick with this as well, right? So any web server will work. Node, HTTP server, and then very important is the dot, right? So this will be my directory where I run all my code, right? So it is like literally Hussein, which node modules, HTTP server, bin, and that's the folder where everything should be executed from. And that's the hard part. Once you do that, you're done. You have a web server running. Now it's time to start writing some codes, right? So we said in the beginning that we're gonna build a calculator. So this episode is probably just getting started, getting set up, learning, taking it very slow, right? We are not in a rush here. We're building and learning in the process, right? So we have my web server ready. I have my text editor ready. What can I do now? What should I start with? The simplest thing is we're gonna build a calculator, right? So that's our goal here. But all our code will be in a single file, and that file is nothing but an actual HTML file. So you might be familiar with this file that when you browse the web and you said, for example, google.com/find.html, you saw some files ending with HTML. So you're gonna author the similar thing here. You're gonna author an HTML file. So don't worry what you're gonna write of it, but let's get started with this now, right? Let's type one thing. Let's just type, I just wrote an HTML file. Simple, right? And then we're gonna save that. Where are you gonna save it? You're gonna save it in the exact directory where you just run your web server. So in my case, it's here. So I'm gonna call it calc.html, right? Stands for calculator. Right? I have other files here, but don't pay attention to them. So calc.html, and then you click save. And just like that, we created our first HTML file. So I want to go ahead and go back to my terminal here, where, did you notice this? When we executed that Node.js application, the web server, we've given back an address, right? We have two kind of addresses, the 127.0.0.1, that's our local machine, and that's the IP address of our machine. Another way to execute any code that is in this directory is to actually use the machine name. If you know your machine name, which is basically something really simple to do, is just type hostname and you'll know your machine name. That's another way of knowing your machine name and address. So now if I copy this and I went to Chrome, right, and I paste that, right, and I type calc.html at the end, I just executed I just fetched that HTML file and executed that, and I brought that into my computer, into my screen in general, right? So Let's change that for simplicity because it's very hard to remember that. I'm going to change that to my machine name. My machine name is Hussein Mac, and that's the port number, right? That's the port that this server is running on. It could be any port, it could be just 80, but happens to be 8080. And that's it. That was the hard part, setting up and getting started. So I just wrote an HTML file. We have that. We have my address, and that will be literally the code that you will be refreshing over and over and over and over and over and over again. Every time you write something here, let's try it actually. Let's write something more, says, yep. And then I'm gonna hold it and save. By the way, you save Control S, so you'll notice that I'll do this very quickly, but I saved. Now next time I refresh, I get the new stuff, right? It's kind of boring though, right? It's just text, right? So we want to build an actual application. So we have to erase all that code and write an actual HTML code, our first HTML code, right? So just getting started, that's the first episode. How to write HTML code. Very simple. So what we want to do here is to build a calculator, right? So slowly we're going to build out all these elements one by one. But let's build the skeleton. Each HTML application starts with this tag, HTML. You have to have that because it has to tell this file that, hey, it starts with HTML. And it ends with HTML. If you do that, it just closes that tag for you. This is called a tag. All right. And then what you're going to do next is you do a body. And that's where most of the code is authored. Right? Now to do this the right way, we're going to do it here now. It's going to say, hello world, I just authored my first HTML page. Right? Now when I refresh, if you notice, none of these code will show up. Because none of these will show up. But we know now this is my body, this is the HTML page, and that's where you write everything, basically. Everything we're gonna write it here. And slowly we're gonna build out this application. It's gonna be fantastic journey, guys. We're gonna have so much fun. All right, another thing I want to discuss here is other kind of tags, just for fun. Show you that different kind of, because none of the tags actually did something to my code, right? So let's do this. If you wrapped the hello with this B, right? And then at the end of that, I closed that tag. That's how you open a tag. That's how you close a tag. It's very simple. That's the beginning of the tag. That's the close of the tag. Beginning, close. So what will happen here is I am telling HTML, or the browser in this case, to execute. While it executes, hey, by the way, anything between these tags, make it bold, right? Let's try that. If you refresh that, you noticed, I don't know if you noticed actually. Yeah, it is actually bold, right? You notice that? Whoa, what happened? Face timing. All right. So another thing we can do is we can use these tags, H1, H2, right? Oh, sorry. Close the H1. So what will happen is H1 is called header 1, which is a type of header which makes things really big, right? And that was just basic introduction of HTML tags. And whenever you need, you're gonna ask. Now I know you have questions. Hey, how do I do italic? How do I do color? How do I change my color? How do I do this? And this is the beginning of a journey of how do you do things. You just Get started and you will learn in the process. You have now the canvas, right? You are an artist, and I believe that programming is art. You have the canvas. Go ahead and make art. Go ahead and do whatever you want, right? Build that thing from scratch. Build that thing. All right, guys. Now I'm gonna do actually the actual code, right? My calculator. Refresh. So that's just title saying this is my calculator. Don't you dare touch that calculator. All right. Nice. All right. Let's continue with our. Oh, you know what? Let's stop here. I think that's enough. We're gonna continue the next episode with more HTML, and we're gonna construct the calculator application. All right. I think this is a logical way to stop. And hope you enjoyed this episode. Now you get it set up. Take your time to set up your application. Ask me questions in the comments section below. And I'm gonna see you on the next one. Goodbye.